Welcome back. I'm Gila Ross, author of Living Beautifully and host of the Power podcast, where we share short, relatable ideas to impact and upgrade your everyday life. I'm really excited to learn a little bit about Sukkot because it's kind of, I think, a little bit of a forgotten holiday in Judaism. You have Rosh Hashanah and you have Yom Kippur, and they're kind of intense. And then a lot of Jews, if I can be honest, I think check out after Yom Kippur, right? So firstly, kudos to all of you for still being like, nope, it's Monday morning straight after Yom Kippur, and we're on it. We're still on it. What is actually a very, very beautiful Chag. Now, what's very interesting is that in Jewish law, there is a mitzvah to be happy on every one of the different Jewish festivals. Interestingly, there's one of the questions I want to throw out is how can we be commanded to be happy? How can we be commanded to have an emotion? I don't know if this happens to anyone else, right? When you're a little bit irritated and someone tells you to calm down, right? On a scale of 1 to 10, how effective is that? Yes, -5, right? It doesn't work. So how can God tell us, be happy? Just because Sukkot is coming up, be happy.
Maybe it's just a reminder that we should, like it's our North Star. I mean,
that's what we should aim towards.
Yeah, you can't make anybody be anything. You have 8 kids, you know that.
But if you fake it, it becomes a reality. So you act happy even if you aren't, and you become happy.
Okay.
I don't think happy and sad are opposites, you know? Like, I think you can be happy inside or about something, even if things aren't going your way. So you make a choice.
Right, and it's interesting that you say that, because one of the things I want to look into in this class is where does happiness sort of come from? And it's interesting that you're saying that you don't think happiness is necessarily the opposite of sadness. And I've got a story to tell you that will back you up. So, but we'll hold on to that story for a second. But what's actually interesting is that and Maimonides talks about how we should be happy, and he says that what that means is that for men, traditionally, they should have meat and wine over the festivals because that can lead to happiness. And for women, it's to buy something new for the Chag, whether it's jewelry or shoes or yes. So there's actually a mitzvah,
Buy something.
meat and wine. And for kids, it's candy, right? Sweet treats, right? So by the way, if there's anything you take away from this class, then it's a mitzvah to go out and buy something new before the Chag, right? Whether it's a piece of jewelry, whether it's a pair of shoes. What's interesting about Sukkot over and above the other holidays is that the mitzvah of being happy is brought up 3 times when it comes to Sukkot. Now, what is the Chag of Sukkot? What's the mitzvahs of the Chag of Sukkot? Right, so it's to leave your comfortable house at this time of year where we're in the middle of the change of seasons, so it's not particularly hot. It can get really cold out there. I think Denver's you're luckier, right? Because the weather usually is decent. We lived in Calgary one year, and I remember the honey freezing in the sukkah. We left the honey overnight or something, and it actually froze because it was like so cold. And at the end of Sukkot, it was always like, we got to get the sukkah down now, because if we don't get the sukkah down now, it's going to get snowed on, and then we're done for like 6 months. There are some places where it's freezing and it's not comfortable. So here we have this mitzvah to be happy. And what is the mitzvahs of the Chag? So one of the mitzvahs is to go leave your comfortable home, sit in this temporary dwelling. Yesterday we were putting up our sukkah, and my kids were complaining, like, it's so narrow and squishy in the sukkah. And I'm like, yeah, it is. Like, it's a sukkah, right? It's not going to be as comfortable as your home. You're cold. Even if you get a heater, it's not quite the same. So the 2 questions that I want to kind of look at is number 1, how can we be commanded to have an emotion? And the second one is, why specifically, like, if this is a festival about, letting go of the materialistic and like leaving the sukkah fits close more with Yom Kippur, right? Like, it's about leaving the materialistic, but this is a festival where we're supposed to be joyous, and this is the one where we leave our comfortable house? So what do you think? Won't it detract from our joy, from our happiness, if we're not comfortable?
You get to go back to your house. You know you have a house. So that's good.
And it makes a lot of sense. The question that I have on that is that, so let the mitzvah of joy be once we get back into our house, and now we appreciate it. We've been out in the cold or the uncomfortable weather or the squishiness for a week. Now we get back into our house. The mitzvah of joy should be afterwards. That's the crux of the answer. How can we be commanded to have an emotion? We can, because we actually have a lot more control over our emotions than we recognize, right? As I think a few of you said, we can do actions that influence our emotions. We can think things that influence our emotions as well. It's yes, we have feelings, but we also have a lot of control over the things we do, or the actions that we take, or the thoughts we think, that will then influence our behavior, which, by the way, is a lot of what is behind therapy, right? CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, it's like the thoughts we think and the actions we take influence our behaviors, which also then influence it. Like it's that loop. And when we understand what's behind the mitzvahs of Sukkot, going out to the sukkah and sitting in the sukkah, the taking of the 4 species, then when a person has an understanding of it, that will naturally bring us to more joy. Let's kind of try and understand it, because who doesn't want more joy in their life? Okay, so let's try and understand what that energy is, right? So there's 3 festivals that are connected to the agricultural year, right? There's Chag HaKotzer, which is Pesach, Passover, which comes at the time of the cutting of the wheat, right? Then you have the Chag HaBikurim, this is Shavuot, where we took the first fruit to the temple. So basically what that happens is the fruits are starting to grow, the first fruits are starting to grow, and there's a mitzvah to take one of the first fruits. So you can take as much or as little as we wanted in the time of the temple, and take it up as a recognition. Remind ourselves that, yes, I've put in all the work and God has blessed me with this fruit. Then there's a 3rd festival, which is Sukkot, which happens at the end of the harvest season, right? So we've gone through the whole agricultural year, we've planted, we've cut the beginning, everything's grown, we've collected it all. Now, obviously, which one of those 3 brings us the most joy? Those 3 times of the year, right? When we're cutting of the wheat, at the beginning of the planting series, there's worry. What's the crop going to be like? When they're starting to grow, there's a little bit of relief, but there's still that worry of how much is going to grow. Is it going to be enough to support my family, my community? And at the end of it, when you've collected all that stuff and you bring it in, it's kind of like getting the paycheck. There's a sense of like relief and joy. And what else can it lead to? When we're in a place, I don't know if anyone has ever been, you get a big bonus, or you get you work on a project and you finally complete it and it comes to life. What can we feel?
Joy.
Joy,
You feel
and
a sense of
accomplishment. And what's the risk of that?
The what?
The risk doesn't happen to us, but sometimes happens to other people. Of that feeling of like joy and accomplishment. Not just I'm so good, but it gets to your head, right? Like they accomplish something and it gets to the head, right? There's like self feeling of like, wow, I'm so important. Now, so what's the remedy for that?
Sit in the sukkah.
Why? Yes, it's the remedy for it. But what does that help us with?
It's humbling. Like we don't run the world.
Yes, we take that joy that we feel. And again, we're supposed to feel joy. It's not that we're supposed to collect all that harvest, bring it into our house and feel like, oh, that was nothing. No, we're supposed to feel joy. We're supposed to enjoy it. And we're supposed to channel that into our relationship with God. The sukkah is not just we leave our house and we're out. It's a dwelling place of God. And there's this 2 things that's happening. There's the physical harvest. There's also a spiritual harvest that's going on here. What do I mean by that? We've put in the effort. We all have, right? Showing up, whatever work we did during Elul, the showing up on Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. We went through the services. We went through getting out of our comfort zone maybe and going to something that we weren't necessarily expecting and pushing ourselves. And then what happens generally is that when we sin, which we do throughout the year, we create a distance between us and God, between us and our higher self, between us and other people. And when we go through this process over the high holidays of cleansing and coming closer to Teshuvah, that repair process, we come closer. We're closer to our higher self. We're closer to other people, hopefully, if we repaired relationships. We're closer to God through the process that we went. And now we come into the sukkah where God tells us, leave your home. Leave the comfort of your home and go into something that's a little bit less comfortable, but where I'm going to be with you, right? I'm going to be with you, and together we're influenced by our surroundings. We're influenced by our surroundings. For anyone that has my book, it's a theme that comes up quite often in Pirkei Avot and in the book, that we are influenced by the people that we are around. And we're similarly influenced by the energy we're around. So when we go into the sukkah, we're influenced by that energy, and we recognize that, as I think Deborah kind of said, is that happiness is not the same as comfort. It's not necessarily the opposite of sadness. In fact, there's a story told of the Chazon Ish, who was a rabbi who went through the Holocaust. He's quoted as saying that for someone who knows the truth, there's no such thing as sadness. Now, I think what's so phenomenal about this quote is that this was said by someone who went through the Holocaust. I can't say that. I can't say for someone who knows the truth there's no such thing as sadness, because I haven't been through something as horrific as that. But he went through something as horrific as that. And he says for someone who knows the truth, there's no such thing as sadness. And I think if anyone has ever kind of been to a gym, imagine an alien lands on Earth and they walk past the gym and they see through the glass door and they see someone who's sweating, right? Sweat dripping down their face and lifting weights. They would think, oh my goodness, this person is being tortured, right? And they would, if you would tell them, hold on a second, not only is this person not being tortured, they're doing it by their choice, free choice, and they're paying for the privilege, right? And is the person who's sweating, sweat dripping down his face, are they miserable? No, because are they comfortable? No, absolutely not. Because comfort is not the same as happiness. We often think that comfort is the same as happiness. Comfort is not the same as happiness. So what does happiness come from? Because it's the person who is in the gym sweating. Are they happy at that point?
Not particularly.
They could be.
They could be. And even during the workout, they could be happy. Where does that sense of happiness come from? It comes from inside the heart. And where does it come from?
Just knowing that there's a benefit to it and it's for the good.
From the meaning, right, that they get from it. So comfort is not necessarily happiness, but meaning, living a meaningful life, is what gives us a sense of contentment, a sense of joy, a sense of inner happiness. And that happiness can look like tears and sweat and difficulties. It's not necessarily a contradiction. And where does the sense of meaning come from? Any idea where a sense of meaning comes from? And we can go back to the analogy of the person in the gym. How could it be that the person is sweating and feels a sense of meaning?
They have something in mind that they're working toward.
They have something that they know that they're working towards. They know that the pain is
Gain.
The pain is worth it.
And what else is the pain?
It's a choice.
It's a choice.
Yeah.
And it's temporary, right?
Yep.
They know that I'll be in the gym and I'll work out for a half an hour or however long it is, and then I will be out of the gym, and the gain is worth the temporary pain. And it's the same thing for us when we recognize and realize that, and again, if this is a new concept for you, I'm happy to discuss afterwards, that this world is a temporary world and our soul lives on. And the gains that we get through the pain or the work that we put in this world is eternal, that gives us meaning. And that meaning can bring us joy and happiness. Let's kind of sum up what we've said so far, and then we're gonna go forward, right? We started with 2 questions. How can we be commanded to have an emotion? And wouldn't leaving the comfort of our home detract from the joy? So the first reason is we looked at you can be commanded for an emotion because we could do things and understand things that influence our emotions, right? And when we understand the beauty, the meaning, the depth behind the mitzvot of Sukkot, that in itself will bring us joy. And there's also the idea that we could do different things physical things that will bring us, that will influence our emotions. And we said that there are three sort of festivals around the harvest season. Sukkot is the one that we celebrate when the harvest is over, right? We've done the work, we're now gathered in, and we've had, please God, a successful harvest physically and also spiritually, because we've done the work of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, which is hard work. And now we're in a place where we've been cleansed, we've been atoned, we're closer to our higher self, we're closer to other people because of the repair and the tshuva process we went through, we're closer to God because of what we went through. And that can sometimes, that sense of joy that comes from accomplishment, can sometimes lead a person to going to the person's head, which we don't want. So what do? What's the antidote to that? The antidote to that is to take that joy and channel it into our relationship with God, which is what the mitzvah of Sukkot is telling us. It's telling us, God is telling us, you did all this work, you've collected this harvest. Now what I want you to do is I want you to leave the comfort of your home, go into a temporary dwelling, and I want you to spend 8 days or 9 days outside of Israel as a festival together with me. I want you to spend that time together with me, that energy, because we're influenced by the energy that we surround ourselves. So we want to bring more of that godliness into our life and into the year. Now, there's another deeper meaning as well that comes from it, is that a lot of times, we feel fear, right? We're concerned about what the future's going to bring, or something that it might happen to us. And what does Sukkot tell us is it's this powerful, powerful message that is telling us that leave the comfort of your home, right? What does our home signify to us?
It's material and
security,
material security. It's absolutely security. The fact that we have, if you think about it, right, walls and a roof that protect us from the elements. If we can afford to pay the rent, right, it's security. Not having a home is that sense of insecurity. And we can feel a lot of anxiety around, will I be secure in life, in different areas? And it's symbolic of the fact that we leave that security, right? And we recognize that whose security am I tapping into? I no longer can rely on the security of my home because I've left it for the week. So whose security can I rely on? God. Which, by the way, doesn't mean that everything is going to be okay according to what I want it to mean. Instead, what it means that whatever happens, I can find meaning in. Because there's a God that's running my life. And there's a God whose protection I'm under. Because the truth is, as much as we don't want to think about it, the security of our house, is that a real security? No, we see it so many times where, God forbid, there's a hurricane or, there's a financial crisis and people lose their homes. It's something that we don't want to think about, but it's a very insecure security. And instead we tap into the security that we're really under. And does that mean that everything's going to be okay according to what we want it to be? No. And it means that no matter what happens, we can find meaning in. And that's where the joy comes. It's when we understand that I don't have to be afraid of the environment. I don't have to be afraid of what life is going to throw at me, because even though it might be hard, I can find meaning in it. And by the way, this is what the process of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur shows us. Because what does Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur show us? Let me take a step back for a second and ask you the question: who runs the world?
The
was the one that created the world, but he gave us the opportunity to do mitzvahs and to do good in this world and to make it a better
or a worse world. Absolutely.
than it was.
We have
Yeah.
free will.
But it's also temporary.
Beautiful. The whole message of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is that we have free will. And it's not just that, we do things. We activate energies, right? I'll give the example that Sue gave us, right? There's an energy in the sukkah. But we activate that energy by building the sukkah, by going into someone else's sukkah. Right? We activate those energies. So we're really in control. Because God says, I created this imperfect world. I created all these imperfect people. And then I'm inviting you to partner with me to make the world a little bit more perfect. And we by our choices, can activate different energies in this world, and we bring down different energies, and there's an incredibly empowering thought, right? To know that yes, I don't know what life is going to throw at me. We really don't know. We have no idea, and yet no matter what life will throw at us, we have control in how we react to it. We can find meaning in what happens to us. And there's one more idea that Sukkah shows us that gives us this sense of joy as well. And there's a custom to that every day. It's called the Ushpizin, not just the show, the Ushpizin, right? But there's this idea that every single day there's a different visitor that comes. On the first day it's Abraham, the second day it's Isaac, the third day it's Jacob, right? Each of these biblical personalities come down into the sukkah. What's the depth behind that? It's teaching us that we as Jews are anchored to a history that's so rich, right? We're not here on our own. We're here with such deep roots. The incredible Abraham had this incredible midah, a character trait of kindness. And he gave it to us. He gave us that potential for kindness. And that's why you see the kindness that Jews do. Every single one of them has given us, we have this roots and this history that's so rich, and knowing that we're anchored to something that's larger than us and that we have such deep roots is also something that gives us joy. So to sum up, why are we commanded specifically with Sukkot to be joyful? We might think that happiness comes from comfort, but it's not true, because you can be incredibly comfortable and not happy. And we see it nowadays, like so many people who have incredible comfort in their life and they struggle because they don't have that sense of meaning. So we leave the comfort behind. We go out to remind ourselves that we are here for a higher purpose, and that no matter what life throws at us, we don't have to live in fear of it, because no matter what life throws at us, we can find a sense of meaning and joy through that. Mm-hmm. And we're also anchored to a history and a tradition that is so rich. Any thoughts, any questions, any comments? Yes, please, Cindy.
That's very beautiful what you said. It made me think that so life is fleeting, and we have the contentment piece and the happiness piece, but happiness isn't forever and all the time. It's instantaneous or moment in time, right? So it passes. But the contentment part comes in with the beauty, I think, of the holiday, of everything you brought in, speaking about Sukkot and how to bring God into our lives so that we can cope with the good and the bad every day and somehow still feel okay, like we can get through this.
The thing that is a challenge is we have to somehow find a way to take all of this joy and spiritualness into the year, because once the holiday season, we kind of hit that.
That's a great point.
How do you take everything you learn, everything you gain from the holiday season, and take it into the year?
I think we may have discussed it in other classes, but I'll just briefly, that every time of year has an energy, but the year is not a circle. It's a spiral, meaning that this energy of the year, we're now heading into this energy of joy, right? Joy that comes from understanding that we can live a life of meaning. And we're going to leave that energy soon. And the next part of the energy that comes up is Mar Cheshvan, which is a much harder energy. And I think what we do is we carry a little bit of that energy forward, but we're going to come back to it next year. But when we come back to it next year, we don't come back to it as a circle. We come back to it as a spiral, which means we're tapping into that energy, but from a little bit of a higher place. And there is so much of a different energy, and we're supposed to get a little bit of that energy. So it's normal for it to be, yes, now I'm tapped into this energy and it's fantastic. And now, in a few months' time, I'm not going to be so tapped into that energy but hopefully we'll have a little bit of that. And I think by continuing to learn and do it.
Just a question, something
Sure.
that's bothering me.
Please.
I am in control, is what you said, but I feel like maybe you're in control of your emotions and how you react to situations, but to me, God's in control. You can do everything you want, but He can change that. He can do all that. So why do you say I'm in control?
You raise a good point, and you're right. And the idea there is that we have more control than we often give ourselves credit to, right? Which means that even, I'm hesitating a little bit because it's a much, much bigger concept than a 2 minute. And the time will tell stories, right? Times where there were droughts. And there was a rabbi called Choni Hamagel. What did he do is he drew a circle and he stood in the circle and he said to God, I'm not leaving the circle until the rain starts to come. Right? And then the rain started to come, but it was like a drizzle. He's like, this is not the rain that I'm thinking. Yeah. And then the rain came down and it was too heavy and he went back in the circle. And what's the point of the story? The point, obviously, he had a direct line to God, right? We can't do that. We can't turn into it. Yet there are things that we can do. Prayer has an impact. The actions that we take have an impact. We have a choice of how much we let God into our life. Does that mean that we're always going to get the results that we want? No, absolutely not. Yet we have to understand that it's not just a brownie point system that God tells us, if you do X, Y, Z, then I'm going to give you a brownie, right? It's a system whereby prayer, for example, actually changes things. There's a fascinating medical research where they studied, right, people who were prayed for and people who were not prayed for. And it was a double-blind control study, which means that the people who were prayed for didn't know they were being prayed for necessarily. And the people who were prayed for, statistically did better. Which goes to show us, it's an incredible study, but which goes to show us that these things actually make a difference. So we have more control than we think we do. And you're right. At the end of the day, God is going to give us what's good for us. And sometimes what's good for us isn't what feels good in the moment, right? God throws us into a situation and we're like, hold on a second. This isn't what I wanted. 100%. But maybe it's good for us.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
And I'm glad you brought it up because it was an important point to things.
I feel like
we still have to do our part.
Yeah, we do have to do our part, yeah.
Like we co-create. Like,
yes.
Like God runs the world, but by my thoughts and my actions and my choices, I can get, a lot of different things can happen.
I should have written there is I have more control. So next edition is going to say I have more control. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. I'd love to hear your feedback, and if you enjoyed this episode, you'll love my book, Living Beautifully, How to Bring Meaning, Joy and Love into Your Life, based on the timeless wisdom of Pirkei Avot. And please take a moment to rate, review and subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss out. Have a wonderful day.